Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Unexpected Goals. This is your Barcelona versus Inter Milan preview for Wednesday Champions League first leg semifinal. It's a very, very interesting match because these two teams' style of play could not be more different. Hansi Flick and Simone Inzaghi have different viewpoints on the way football should be played, but they are two of the most elite sides in Europe. And Inter, it's a very interesting time for them because they're coming off three straight losses where they haven't scored a single goal. They get knocked out of the semifinals of the Coppa Italia to AC Milan, who for some reason they cannot beat this season, and then lose to Roma over the weekend and see their Serie A title slipping away at their fingers. So now it's vitally important that they focus on the Champions League and maybe the pressure of going after three trophies at once, essentially in the same week, is catching up with them. Barcelona, on the other hand, are coming off a 3-2 extra time win over Real Madrid, an El Clasico and Copa del Rey final. Second trophy of the year for Hansi Flick. Coming out on my Substack later this week, I'm gonna update my Barcelona's chances of winning the quadruple because that is very much alive right now with a 4 point lead over Real Madrid in La Liga and are one of the favorites to win the Champions League. There is a ton to talk about with this matchup, so let's just dive right in. First off, let's start with Barcelona in possession versus Inter out of possession. The battle for the middle of the pitch is going to be fascinating here. So Barcelona will often overload the middle with sometimes even six guys, but recently some teams have figured out ways and they've committed a lot of bodies centrally to make sure that that Barcelona doesn't maintain that overload. And you can see from this image here, again, if you're listening to this podcast form, this is available in video format on my YouTube channel, which is the link is in the description below. If you're listening to this on podcast form. Barcelona here is trying to overload the middle against Real Madrid, but Real Madrid has committed a lot of bodies centrally to make sure that Barcelona can't find a way. Now, Barcelona is aggressive with their passing. They definitely, if they get to a situation like this, they'll play the ball to Pedri and they'll ping pong passes and try to play through. Trying to do that against Inter, who plays a 5-3-2 with three center backs and three midfielders that all tend to stay very narrow, it makes it almost impossible for Barcelona to really overload and play through the middle. Bayern Munich tried to overload the middle of the pitch against Inter over the course of the two legs, and in the first leg, they had a lot of difficulty finding space in the middle. You can see from the pass map here, basically Bayern was just a nice, perfect arc here of Bayern just doing a lot of ball rotation, not really finding anything in the middle to that's Guerrero and Kane, and Inter kind of just kept them out. I know, in the end, Bayern ended up creating a little over two expected goals in that match, but Inter did a good job of denying them through the middle. Then when you go to the second leg from Inter against Bayern, they were just trying to hold on for dear life at the end, and their defensive line got deeper and deeper as they were just trying to get to the semifinals. And as you can see here from Mark's stats, Bayern had a lot of deep entries, especially around zone 14 and right inside the 18-yard box. Um, but even with that being said, with all those deep entries that I just showed you, Bayern Munich was only able to create 1.5 expected goals in the second meeting. And look at the amount of shots that Inter blocked. I mean, you can even look at Bayern Munich's chances here. I mean, they had one chance with an XG rating over point 0.2, and it came at the very end with Thomas Mueller when they were just trying to cross stuff into the box. But you can see, I can't count off the top of my head. What is that? Seven shots, eight shots blocked, eight, I think it is. No, nine, nine shots blocked. Sorry. Um, that is how good Inter is in terms of their box defending. So for Barcelona, for me, this is really going to come down to how effective are they in 1v1 situations out wide if they're not able to play through the middle. Robert Lewandowski is going to miss this match, which is a huge loss because you lose an aerial threat in the box if you have to cross the ball a bunch in. Alejandro Balde is working his way back to be fit at the time of recording this. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I've seen reports that he is. I've seen reports that he's going to feature this weekend over Valladolid, and then for the second leg, I don't know. But if he's out, it's a huge loss because what often happens is Rafinha will be the one that inverts into the left half space, and that's kind of what creates Barcelona's five-man overload in the midfield. And they'll usually in situations like this where they even when they have Lewandowski, but here where they have Ferran Torres, they'll drop him into the middle. I'm showing you the image right now. They'll drop him into the middle, and you can see you have essentially a five-man overload. Well, what that does is it forces teams to stay very narrow and stay very compact, and it creates a lot of space out wide for Barcelona's fullbacks. So, Gerard Martin early on in the Copa del Rey final was just given so much space. As you can see here, the pass comes here from Pedri. He is given so much space to just run into. But Gerard Martin is not the type of progressive and creating fullback that Balde is, and he misplaced a lot of passes in this match. So Real Madrid were kind of just living with the risk of him getting the ball out wide and crossing it. He really couldn't find anybody. So uh, it's really going to come down to how effective is he in the wide areas, and then on the other end of the pitch, the central overload, what it also does is it gives them a chance to get Lamine Yamal, excuse me, into 1v1 situations. And how is he going to be able to create? And does Inter actually leave him on an island, or do they prioritize getting two guys on him? When they do that, then that's when Koundé just makes runs into the half space, or Dani Olmo makes runs in the half space, and they're able to find and then create chances that way. Barcelona's a really, really difficult team to defend. So Inter staying very compact. It's gonna come down to these kind of 2v1 situations, whether it's uh, you know, Barcelona, creating those out wide with Yamal and Koundé. The positioning of Rafinha, I think here is interesting against Dortmund. He played more of a wide as a more of a winger than as an inverted winger, which caused Dortmund some problems. So does Rafinha stay wide and Barcelona tries to prioritize creating chances from out wide, or do they try to go for the middle? I don't know. It'll be a very interesting match, but I'll tell you this much. If Barcelona is just forced to send a bunch of crosses in the box, they're not going to have much success here. And I'll get to why, because Inter is one of the best aerial teams in the world. Now, for Inter in possession versus Barcelona out of possession, I think Inter is one of the most well-equipped teams in the world to actually hurt Barcelona and their high line. We don't know the status of Marcus Thuram at the time of recording this right now. He's a huge key in this match because the last two matches, Inter has had to play Taremi and Arnautovic as the other striker along Lautaro Martinez. And while both of those guys are decent in hold-up play, none of those guys are making runs in behind like Thuram is when they're dropping Martinez and deep. And those two are so good at interchanging positions and finding each other and making runs into the vacated space when one drops deep. And for a team like Barcelona that likes to man mark, well, that makes it even more difficult. And that's a matchup that Inter, if they decide to play direct, which I think is a good option here for them, uh, that is how they can really hurt Barcelona. Now, even though it's a good option for them to play direct here in this first leg, I'm not sure they're going to do it because I think Inzaghi's really going to try to build up against Barcelona, which I think creates problems for Barcelona, but also I think it's very, very risky for Inter. And I'll explain why. So Inter, what they typically do in build-up is their center backs will invert into the midfield, and the midfielders will drop deep into the back line. So what that does is when you're facing a man-marking system, you're either going to have to do a lot of switching. Guys are going to have to switch guys off, or you're going to have to follow those guys. So if you switch, center backs, you're essentially moving midfielders up and forwards back, and your forwards are now, defending in the middle of the pitch, which is not what you want, right? But while that's wonderful, and then what that also does is when you play direct or you're playing a lot of quick passes going forward, your center backs are the ones that are there to be able to win second balls, right? You want your more physical defenders going forward. Your most physical players, excuse me, going forward if you are trying to be physical and trying to win duels. But I think this is a really risky approach for Inter for two reasons. First, they don't face a lot of elite high pressing teams in Serie A. And over the two legs against Bayern Munich, they lost the ball in the danger zone 68 times, which is a lot considering they only had 40% possession over the two legs. And as you can see from the two images here, 32 danger zone losses in the first leg, and then 36, or excuse me, 32 danger zone losses in the second leg, 36 in the first leg. And the second reason is Inter doesn't really have guys that can just dribble by defenders. So they're kind of reliant on making either short passes if they want to play through teams, or they, are more focused on making direct passes. I'm showing you this here from FBref. And this is all of Europe's top five leagues. Inter has the lowest amount of successful take-ons per 90 of any team among Europe's top five leagues. So while that's a good thing for them because they basically just move the ball very quickly with a lot of progressive passes, a lot of direct passes, and that's how they hurt teams. I think it would be very wise for them to go long from deep and build up, take the low risk approach, and just try to win duels because they are the more physical team and they are much better at winning aerial duels. And that gets me to my final point here is one of the biggest aspects for Inter offensively is going to be set pieces. They are one of the most physically dominant teams in the air. In Serie A this season, they are winning on average 58.8% of their aerial duels. That is the highest mark among Europe's top five leagues. They have scored 14 goals and created 14.7 expected goals off of set pieces in Serie A. Barcelona doesn't face a lot of corners in La Liga and throughout the Champions League as well, or set pieces because they constantly have the ball. But Real Madrid scored off a corner against them in the Copa del Rey final, and Barcelona is 18th in XG per set piece allowed. So it's a very, very interesting matchup here. I have Barcelona at about a 56% chance projected to win this match. I'll show my score probabilities here of using my projections and Poisson distribution of what I have for all of them really quickly here. If you want to see more of this, you can see it on my Substack. But man, if Barcelona comes away with a lead here, and Inter has to play from behind, that's a very scary proposition. And Barcelona, what they're going to do, they're not just going to sit back. They're going to continually go for the kill shot. That's what they did against Dortmund, and that's what they'll continually do here against Inter, which makes it very entertaining for us as neutrals. So enjoy the first leg here on Wednesday. I'll be back with a tactical analysis of the match on Wednesday, and then I'll also have a preview of the both Europa League and then the Premier League slate for the weekend. So thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see you again next time.